Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I woke up to a sharp, familiar pain in my stomach. When I opened my eyes, I saw the cracked ceiling above me, its surface still stained with mold from last year's rainy season. The air carried the faint smell of soap pods and coarse homespun fabric. This wasn't a hospital in the city. It was Megan's house, Ethan's sister. My hand went instinctively to my stomach. It was flat and smooth. There was no scar, the one that in my past life had been left behind after multiple miscarriages. A jolt of realization hit me. I sat up abruptly. On the wooden chest beside the bed lay a faded red cotton jacket, its fabric whitened with age. A neatly folded piece of paper was pressed beneath it. On the paper, in crooked handwriting, were 2 words: marriage contract. At the bottom were 2 names, mine and Ethan Miller's. My head buzzed as memories from my previous life surged back like a flood. Tomorrow I was supposed to wear that red jacket and marry Ethan Miller. After that, for 10 long years, I went from being a city girl to a worn-out country wife. I gave him everything. My parents' money and the savings I'd earned through hard work to help him start his business. He promised me that once he became successful, he'd give me a good life. But in the end, he took all my money and ran off with the daughter of a wealthy businessman. I was pregnant when I chased after him. He shoved me into the snow. I lost the baby, and the fall left me sickly for the rest of my life. I didn't even live to see 40. Lana, are you awake yet? You'd better get up and wash up. Tomorrow's your big day. The voice outside belonged to Mrs. Miller, Ethan's mother. Her tone was full of smug certainty, just like in my previous life. I clenched the marriage contract in my hand, my knuckles turning white. In that past life, I had been fooled by this so-called happy day. I thought I was marrying a man with potential, but in truth, I was throwing myself into a pit of fire. Not this time. I grabbed the scissors from the bedside table and with a sharp snip, cut the marriage contract into tiny pieces. The scraps scattered over the earthen bed like the shattered remains of my previous life. What the hell do you think you're doing? Mrs. Miller burst through the door. When she saw the shredded paper, her face instantly darkened. You agreed to this marriage yourself. Now you want to back out? Do you think the Millers are that easy to mess with? I looked up at her sharp, mean face. There wasn't an ounce of fear in me, only cold amusement. Auntie, I'm not marrying your son. I've got things to take care of in the city. I'm leaving today. You wouldn't dare. She shouted and lunged toward me. I stepped back just in time to bump into Ethan, who had just walked in. He frowned, still wearing that mild, patient expression that used to fool me. Lana, don't be mad. Is it because my family isn't well off? Don't worry, I'll make something of myself. Someday I'll be rich. And when I am, I cut him off coldly. That's the same lie you used to fool me for a lifetime. Ethan Miller, I don't care about your dream of becoming rich. We're not the same kind of people. This marriage is over. Without another word, I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. No matter how much they shouted or cursed, I didn't look back. This time I was going home back to the city to live my own life. I would never again be the foolish woman who ruined herself trying to save someone else. Ethan grabbed my arm, his grip so tight it felt like he might crush my bones. Lana, you're not going anywhere. You think you can call off a wedding just like that? How are we supposed to hold our heads up in this village? His mother's shrill voice rose even higher as she stormed into the yard, hands on her hips. Everyone come look. The city girl's gone wild. She seduced my son, took advantage of him, and now she wants to run away. Do you know how much debt we took on for this wedding? Her voice echoed through the courtyard and soon villagers began pouring in. Within moments the yard was full. People were whispering, pointing, their judgmental stares surrounding me from all sides. The villagers' stares felt like needles, pricking into my skin. In my past life, this exact scene had terrified me. I'd been overwhelmed by the pressure and by Ethan's honeyed words, and I had let him coax me right back into the trap step by step until I fell into the abyss. But now I only found it ridiculous. Yanked my arm free from Ethan's grip and pulled a neatly folded piece of paper from my bag, raising it high above my head. Everyone take a good look, I shouted. This is the IOU, Ethan Miller wrote last month when he borrowed $50 from me. He said he wanted to start a small business, but instead he used it to buy his brother a new pair of sneakers. I reached into my bag again and pulled out another paper. And this is the receipt for the $200 he borrowed from my father. He said he wanted to build a new house for the wedding. But look around. Does this dirt-walled hut look anything like a new house to you? Ethan's face went pale. His mother immediately tried to argue. That was part of the bride price. You gave that money willingly. It was a gift. I let out a cold laugh. Auntie, search your conscience. Did your family ever pay a single cent in bride price? From start to finish, it's been my family footing the bill. Your son keeps saying he wants to be a millionaire. Yet he can't even afford his own travel expenses without begging help from my parents. Is that what you call potential? The onlookers began whispering among themselves. Someone muttered quietly, so that's what really happened with the Millers. No wonder she's calling off the wedding. Ethan grew anxious and lunged toward me, trying to snatch the IUs from my hand. Lana, stop lying. That money was something you gave me willingly. What's the point of taking it back now? Willingly. I took a step back to avoid his reach. I was blind before. That's why I believed your sweet lies. But now I've woken up. Chase your dream of being rich all you want, Ethan, but don't drag my family down with you. I turned to face the crowd. Neighbors, elders, familiar faces, all watching intently. Everyone, I, Lana Brown, am saying this clearly today. This marriage is officially over. Ethan Miller still owes my family money, and I'll get it back sooner or later. As for the debts your family took on for this wedding, that has nothing to do with me. When I finished, I didn't look at Ethan or his furious mother again. I picked up my bag and walked straight toward the village entrance. They tried to follow, but a few elderly villagers stepped in to stop them. Let it go, one of the elders said sternly. This time your family's in the wrong. A forced marriage never ends well. I walked quickly, not looking back, until I reached the tractor heading toward the city. As it rattled along the bumpy dirt road, the wind brushed against my face, and for the first time I felt completely free. Watching the trees race backward outside the window, I whispered silently in my heart. Ethan Miller. The debts from my past life in Miller Village, I owe you nothing now. From this moment on, my life belongs to me. The tractor jolted along for more than 3 hours before finally entering the main road into the city. Seeing the familiar gray brick houses, the public buildings hung with red lanterns, and the men pedaling their big black bicycles along the street, my eyes burned with tears. This was home, the place I had longed for all my life, but never managed to return to before I died. When I pushed open the familiar wooden gate, my mother, who was picking vegetables in the courtyard, looked up suddenly. The basket in her hands clattered to the ground when she saw me. Lana, you're back. I thought the wedding was tomorrow. I called it off, I said, walking straight into her arms, feeling her warm embrace. My throat tightened. Mom, I couldn't go through with it. Ethan Miller isn't a good man. My father, William, stepped out of the house, his brows furrowed deeply. But he didn't scold me. After a moment he said quietly, "Come inside. Let's talk." We sat down together and I told them everything. How Ethan had borrowed money and never paid it back. How every word from his mouth had been a lie. I didn't mention the miserable fate of my past life. I just said that I had finally seen him for who he really was. Mom wiped her tears and said, "I told you long ago that man wasn't reliable, but you wouldn't listen. It's a good thing you've come to your senses now. You're home and that's all that matters." Dad sighed softly. "It's fine that you called it off. There's nothing shameful about it. Our family might not be rich, but we'll never let you suffer. Life is long and you'll start fresh." Their understanding warmed my heart, and the heavy stone that had been weighing on my chest finally lifted. In the days that followed, I helped around the house and sometimes went out to the street market to look around, soaking in the liveliness of the city. The air here smelled of people, food, and life. It felt real, and little by little I began to relax. One afternoon, I took the ration coupons Mom had given me to buy rice at the grain store. As I stepped out the door, a familiar voice called out behind me, "Lana, it really is you." I turned around and froze. Standing there was a tall man dressed in a clean blue work uniform. His shoulders were broad, his posture straight, and a gentle smile curved his lips. It was my old neighbor, Aaron Chun. In my previous life after marrying Ethan Miller, I had rarely returned to the city. Later, I'd heard that Aaron had become a technician at a factory. He was hardworking, a dependable backbone of the place. I also heard he'd never married. "Hey, Aaron." I greeted him with a smile, my heart unexpectedly heavy with emotion. I hadn't imagined I'd run into him again so soon after coming home. Aaron walked closer, his gaze resting on my face for a few seconds before he asked gently, "I heard you were living in the countryside for a while. How come you're back now?" He didn't mention the broken engagement, clearly sparing me the embarrassment. The thought warmed me. "Things didn't work out," I said truthfully. "So I came back." Then I asked, "Are you just getting off work, Aaron?" He nodded. "Yeah, just left the factory. I was heading home to cook dinner." He pointed down the road. "Your house is up ahead, right? Want me to walk you there?" The bag of rice in my hand was heavy, so I didn't refuse. "Then I'll take you up on that, Aaron." As we walked, we talked about what had been going on in our lives. He said the factory was working on new technology lately, keeping everyone busy. I told him I had just gotten back and hadn't decided what to do yet. He spoke clearly and calmly, his tone steady and thoughtful, not slick or full of empty promises like Ethan had always been. His words made people feel grounded and safe. When we reached my house, I handed him the bag of rice. "Thank you, Aaron. Come in for a glass of water before you go." He waved his hand and smiled. "I'd better not. My mom's waiting for me to come home for dinner. But if you ever need help with anything, don't hesitate to ask." I watched him ride away on his bicycle, his back straight and steady. And suddenly a thought crossed my mind. If I could marry a man as dependable and kind as him, life would be peaceful and secure. A few days after I came home, Mom started to bring up the topic of marriage again. While stitching a shoe sole, she said casually, "Lana, now that you're back, you're not exactly young anymore. You can't stay single forever. The other day, your Aunt Wendy came by and mentioned a young man who's quite nice. She wanted to introduce you to." I was helping her pick vegetables when my hands froze midair. "Mom, I just got back. I want to take things slow for a while." "Take it slow for what?" she said, setting down her needle and thread and looking at me seriously. "A girl can't afford to waste time." I asked around about the guy. "He's a technician at the machine factory. His name's Aaron Chun. He's an only child and his parents are honest, good people. Most importantly, he's hardworking. Even his supervisors at the factory praise him." The moment I heard the name Aaron Chun, the vegetable leaf slipped from my fingers. I almost dropped the whole bunch. What are the odds? Could it really be the same Aaron I know? I tried to sound calm as I asked, "Mom, this guy you mentioned, Aaron Chun, is he tall? Usually wears a blue work uniform and lives in the alley right next to ours." Mom's eyes lit up immediately. Yes, that's him. You know him." I nodded, feeling both surprised and happy and a little shy. "I ran into him on the street the other day. He even helped me carry a bag of rice home." "Well, that's fate then," Mom said with a smile. "Since you already know each other, it'll be easier to talk. I've already made arrangements with your Aunt Wendy. You'll meet him tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock in the pavilion at People's Park. Dress nicely and go take a look." I didn't refuse. After what I'd been through in my previous life, I understood just how rare it was to find someone reliable. Aaron had already left a good impression on me. If something could really come of it, it would be a blessing. The next afternoon, I put on a new floral blouse and braided my hair neatly. I arrived at People's Park 10 minutes early. There were already a few people sitting in the pavilion, cooling off in the shade. I looked around but didn't see Aaron, so I chose a corner seat and sat down. My heart was fluttering nervously like a little rabbit caught in my chest. I hadn't even been this anxious before my wedding in my last life. As I sat there fidgeting with the edge of my sleeve, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Lana, have you been waiting long?" I turned around and saw Aaron standing a short distance away, holding a mesh bag with 2 apples inside. He wasn't wearing his usual work uniform today. Instead, he had on a crisp white shirt, his hair neatly combed, looking cleaner and more refreshed than I'd ever seen him. "Not long," I said quickly, standing up, feeling my cheeks warm. He walked over and sat across from me, handing me one of the apples. I passed by a fruit stand on the way and thought I'd grab a couple. "Here, try them." I took the apple from him and said softly, "Thank you." When our hands brushed, I felt a faint, steady warmth, solid and real. A light breeze drifted through the pavilion, carrying the fresh scent of grass and trees. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt calm, but tinged with something tender and uncertain. Aaron was the first to break the silence. "My mom told me about this meeting. I didn't expect the person to be you." He scratched the back of his head, looking a bit embarrassed. "Actually, the last time I walked you home, I already thought you were really nice." His words made my heart feel warm. I looked up, meeting his eyes. They were sincere and steady without the evasiveness or the sly calculation that Ethan's gaze had always carried. "Aaron," I said softly, gathering my courage, "I'm sure you've already heard. I was engaged before, but I called it off." He nodded. "Yeah, I heard a little about that, but I think marriage is for life. If two people aren't right for each other, there's nothing wrong with walking away." That simple sentence went straight to my heart. In my past life, everyone had said I was foolish and stubborn for breaking off my engagement. Only Aaron seemed to truly understand my choice. We kept talking about his work at the factory, about family life, about childhood memories from our old alley, and even about our hopes for the future. He said he wanted to keep improving his skills and hopefully become an engineer one day. I said I wanted to start a small business to help support my family. Time passed quickly, and before we knew it, the sun was setting. Aaron offered to walk me home. When we reached the entrance of my alley, he stopped and turned to me. "Lana," he said, "seriously, I really enjoyed talking with you. If you don't mind, maybe we could see each other more often." I looked at him, meeting his earnest eyes, and smiled. "I'd like that." "Sure," I said, watching him turn and walk away, my heart filling with a soft, lingering sweetness. So this is what it feels like to live a life that isn't about saving someone else, where even a blind date feels right. News of me and Aaron seeing each other spread through the neighborhood quickly, and with it came the inevitable gossip. One afternoon, I went to the community store to buy soy sauce. Just as I reached the entrance, I heard two middle-aged women whispering by the wall. "Did you see Lana Brown? She just broke off that engagement in the countryside, and now she's with Aaron Chun. I bet she planned this all along." The other woman snorted. "Exactly. I heard she was about to marry that country guy, and now she set her sights on Aaron. What a shame. He's such a good man." Their words pricked my ears like needles. In my past life, I would have blushed and run away in embarrassment. But now I simply pretended not to hear, lifted my head high, and walked straight past them with the bottle of soy sauce in hand. When I got home, Mom noticed the look on my face and sighed. "Lena, don't let the gossip bother you. Some people just can't stand seeing others happy." "I know, Mom," I said with a smile. "Life is meant to be lived for ourselves, not for others to judge. I know what kind of man Aaron is. He's good to me, and that's enough." Even though I said it so easily, the sting of those words still lingered somewhere deep inside. A few days later, someone finally dared to say those things right to my face. That day, Aaron had asked me to go to the movies with him. We had just arrived at the theater when we ran into an old classmate of mine from elementary school, Lily Jang. She looked me up and down, her mouth curling into a mocking smile. Well, Lana, you ran away from the countryside and already managed to snag Aaron Chun, the facto's golden bachelor. Didn't you once say you'd never marry anyone but Ethan Miller? What happened? Changed your mind already?" Aaron frowned immediately and instinctively stepped in front of me. "Miss Jang," he said evenly, "watch your words. I know what kind of person Lana is. Our relationship is real, and it has nothing to do with anyone else." I stepped out from behind him and faced Lily directly. My voice was calm but firm. "Lily, marriage is a lifelong commitment. If two people aren't right for each other, it's better to part ways than to keep pretending. There's nothing shameful about that. Aaron and I like each other sincerely, and we have nothing to hide, unlike some people who only know how to talk behind others' backs." Lily clearly hadn't expected me to confront her so directly. Her face flushed bright red and she muttered something like, "I can't be bothered with you," before turning and walking off. Aaron watched her leave, then turned to me, his eyes full of tenderness. "Lana, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to put up with that." "I'm not upset," I said, shaking my head with a small smile. As long as you trust me, that's all that matters. Still deep down, I knew that the gossip wasn't just aimed at me. It affected Aaron too. His coworkers at the factory would definitely talk, and his parents might also have their doubts. So, I decided to take the initiative. Aaron, I said, I'd like to visit your parents. He looked genuinely happy about that. And that very same day he took me to his home. His parents turned out to be honest, kind-hearted people, just as I'd imagined. During dinner, Aaron's mother hesitated for a moment before saying gently, Lana, don't take the gossip to heart. Once Aaron sets his mind on someone, he doesn't change it. As long as the two of you are happy together, we're at ease. I set my chopsticks down and looked at them sincerely. Thank you for trusting me, Mr. and Mrs. Chun. I broke off my last engagement because I finally saw the truth about that person. I didn't want to waste my life or anyone else's. My feelings for Aaron are genuine, and I promise we'll live well together and take good care of you both. Aaron reached over, gently took my hand and added, Mom, Dad. Chun said, setting down his chopsticks. Lana's a good girl. If you're sure about her, then marry her. No matter what anyone says, we'll support you. Aaron looked at his parents, then turned to me. His grip on my hand tightened, his eyes steady and filled with certainty. Mom, Dad, he said firmly. Lana is the woman I want to marry. No matter what others say, I've already made up my mind. His hand was warm and strong, his gaze unwavering. And in that moment my heart felt completely at peace. After that day, life carried on as usual. Aaron would come find me after work, take me to the night market, and buy me my favorite candied fruit. I would knit sweaters for him, and when he came home in the evenings, I always had a hot meal waiting. Slowly, the gossip outside began to fade. People started to see the sincerity between us. And I knew deep down that this time I had chosen the right person. After half a year of dating, both our families were pleased with us. So we held a simple wedding. There was no grand ceremony, just a meal with both families and a single black and white photo to mark the day. But in my heart I felt a sense of peace, 100 times stronger than when I married Ethan Miller in my last life. After the wedding, Aaron and I lived in his family's old house. It wasn't big, but it was tidy and cozy. Every day, he went to work on time, handed me his entire paycheck, and helped with housework without a single complaint. Watching him busy around the home, I realized this was what real life was supposed to feel like. 2 months passed quietly. Then I started to think about doing something small to earn extra income. It was the early 1990s and the market economy was just beginning to take off. Opportunities were everywhere. In my past life, I had wasted so much time following Ethan's foolish schemes, missing out on chance after chance. This time, I was determined to seize them. One evening over dinner, I said, Aaron, I've been thinking. I want to start a small business. Maybe a street stall. He paused mid-bite, looking up at me. A business? What kind of business? I want to sell small things that young people like. Sunglasses, cassette tapes, hair clips, ribbons. I could set up a stand at the night market or near a school. I spoke carefully, trying to sound casual. People have more money now, and everyone likes trendy things. I think they'd sell well. Of course, I didn't tell him that I already knew these would become popular. I simply said I'd been observing what young people liked on the streets. Aaron thought for a moment. Ben nodded. All right, if that's what you want, give it a try. I support you. Just don't wear yourself out. Not only did he not object, he even took out his personal savings and handed them to me. This is $80 I've been saving. Take it to buy your supplies. If it's not enough, we'll figure something out. The warmth of his palm lingered on the small stack of bills he gave me, and my chest filled with emotion. The next morning, I caught the earliest bus to the provincial capital and spent the entire morning at the wholesale market. I carefully picked out the latest styles of large round sunglasses, a few cassette tapes of Teresa Tang and Chien, and a colorful assortment of hair clips and ribbons. By the time I finished, I'd spent every last cent. I carried the bulging snakeskin bag full of goods home, exhausted but excited. That evening, I set up my first stall near the high school night market. The sky hadn't even darkened yet when I pushed the little cart Aaron had helped modify and claimed a good spot. I spread out the plastic mat and arranged the merchandise neatly, my heart fluttering with both nervousness and anticipation as crowds began to gather around the street. First, no one came. I fidgeted behind the cart, unsure of what to do. Then, a little girl with a ponytail stopped in front of my stall and stared at the hair clips. "Miss, how much is this pink one?" she asked. "0 cents, I replied quickly with a smile. The girl bit her lip, then pulled some coins from her pocket and paid for it. It was my first sale. My palms were sweating with excitement. After that, more and more customers began to stop by my stall. The sunglasses and cassette tapes were the most popular items, especially among the students who loved picking through the displays and trying things on. Within a short time, I sold several pairs of glasses and quite a few tapes. When Aaron arrived after work, he caught sight of the busy scene. He didn't say much, just quietly crouched down beside me to help organize the merchandise and assist customers. He even took over making change when I got flustered. With him there, I felt calm and secure. By the time the night market wound down, we counted our earnings together. After deducting costs, we'd made $15 in profit, almost 2 days' wages for an average worker back then. We were both overjoyed. From then on, I set up my stall on time every evening, and whenever Aaron didn't have to work overtime, he'd come and help. When it rained, he held an umbrella over the goods to keep them dry. When customers got difficult, he handled them with gentle patience. Once, when city officers came around to check for unauthorized vendors, Aaron grabbed the cart while I scooped up the merchandise, and we ducked into a narrow alley together, hearts pounding but laughing as we hid. When the coast was clear, we went right back out and kept selling. It was hard work, really hard, but seeing the money grow day by day filled me with pride. We saved part of our earnings and used the rest to expand the stall. Soon we added scarves, gloves, and socks, everyday essentials that sold quickly. The stall grew larger and business boomed. One night on our way home after packing up, Aaron held my hand and said, "Lena, you're amazing. You're earning more than I make at the factory." I laughed. This isn't just my achievement. It's ours. We've worked for it together. Once we've saved enough, let's open a little shop of our own. No more standing in the wind and sun every day. Aaron nodded firmly. "All right. Whatever you want to do, I'll be by your side." Under the soft glow of the streetlights, our shadows stretched long across the ground. Holding his warm, strong hand, I knew our good days were only just beginning. After 6 months of running the stall, we had saved more than $300, enough to rent a small shop. That weekend, Aaron and I spent half the day walking around downtown looking for the right place. Eventually, we found a cozy little storefront about 10 square meters in size. It wasn't big, but the location was perfect, next to the market and across from a residential block with plenty of foot traffic. The rent was just $30 a month. We signed the lease on the spot. Next came the renovation. We didn't hire any workers. After Aaron got off work each day, he came to paint the walls and install shelves, while I handled cleaning and planning how to arrange the goods. Aaron was surprisingly handy. He built several sturdy wooden shelves out of recycled planks and coated them with varnish until they looked neat and polished. I decorated the walls with posters of popular movie stars and added a small pot of green ivy in the corner. The tiny shop instantly came to life. A week later, Lana's General Store officially opened for business. On opening day, my mom and Aaron's parents came to help. We had stocked up on more merchandise than ever before. Not just the trendy trinkets we've been selling, but also daily necessities like towels, soap, and toothpaste, and even a few children's toys to attract families. To celebrate, we ran a small promotion. Anyone who spent $5 or more got a free celebrity postcard. Word spread quickly, and before long the shop was packed. Neighbors, students coming home from school, and women on their way back from the market crowded the little store until there was hardly room to move. I greeted customers and helped them choose items, while Aaron handled the payments and packaging. We were so busy we barely had time to breathe, but neither of us felt tired. We were full of energy and happiness. That night, after closing the shop and tallying the day's earnings, we found we had made more than $30 in profit, double what we used to earn from the street stall. Aaron and I sat together in the quiet store, surrounded by neatly stacked goods and counting the cash in our hands. We couldn't stop smiling. "I can't believe business was this good," I said, half laughing. Aaron rubbed his sore arms, his face lit with satisfaction. "We earned this one step at a time," he said warmly. I leaned against his shoulder, my heart swelling with gratitude. In the days that followed, business grew better and better. Thanks to the memories from my previous life, I could always predict what would become popular before anyone else. When beeper lanyards and colorful plastic sandals hit the trend, I was the first to stock them. And every time I did, they sold out in a flash. Aaron was a huge help too. Whenever his factory wasn't busy, he came to assist at the shop. He even redesigned our shelving to create more display space. Life was getting brighter with each passing day. We paid off the small loan we had taken to open the store, and even managed to build up savings. Mom saw how well I was doing and couldn't hide her pride. She told everyone that Aaron was hardworking and that I had a good head for business. One afternoon, while she was at the shop helping me organize inventory, she casually said, "Lana, your aunt came to visit the city a few days ago. She mentioned that Ethan Miller hasn't been doing so well lately." My hands froze for a second, but I didn't reply. Inside, though, there wasn't a trace of emotion. Mom went on, "After you broke off the engagement, he found another city girl. Tried the same thing. Wanted her to invest in his business, but her family wasn't well off either, and she didn't give him much. He's too ambitious for his own good. Doesn't want to work hard but still dreams big. He tried running a fruit business with a partner and ended up getting scammed. Now he's in heavy debt. His parents cry every day. They can barely afford food." Aaron glanced over at me and gently patted my hand. I smiled faintly and continued arranging the shelves. "That was the path he chose," I said softly. "No one else is to blame." In my past life, hearing that might have made me feel pity or worse, foolish enough to want to help him. But now all I felt was relief. Relief that I'd had the courage to walk away before he dragged me down with him. That night, on our way home after closing up, Aaron took my hand and said quietly, "Don't think about those unhappy things. All that matters is that we live our life well." I nodded and looked up at the stars. My heart felt clear and peaceful. He was right. There was no point dwelling on the past. It was better to cherish the happiness I had now. Our little shop grew busier with each passing day, and life became more stable than ever. That was enough for me. Not long after, we ordered a new batch of dresses and men's shirts. As soon as they hit the shelves, customers flocked in. Watching the steady flow of people and hearing the lively chatter filling the shop, I couldn't help but smile. Our business and our life were thriving. When the seasons changed, sales were even better. Dresses, shirts, jackets, everything flew off the racks as soon as we restocked. Small vendors from nearby towns even began coming to us for wholesale purchases, often buying dozens of items at a time. Eventually, we realized retail alone couldn't keep up with the growing demand. That evening, after closing the shop, I said to Aaron, "Hey Aaron, a lot of people are coming to buy in bulk these days. What if we shift to wholesale? We'd sell larger quantities. Even if the profit margin is smaller, we'd move stock faster. Plus, we wouldn't have to be in the store every day. It'd save us a lot of time and energy." Aaron was just pouring me a cup of hot water. His eyes lit up. "That's a great idea," he said. "Wholesale would definitely be easier to manage, and it could help us grow the business even more, but we'll need a stable supply. Our current vendors probably can't handle the larger quantities we'd need." "I've already thought about that," I told him. "Next week, I plan to take another trip to the provincial capital. I'll look for bigger wholesalers and try to negotiate better prices and more reliable deliveries. If we can connect directly with manufacturers, we'll save a lot by cutting out the middlemen." Aaron nodded and handed me a cup of hot water. "All right," he said. "I'll take a few days off from the factory and go with you. It'll be safer for you, and I can help when it's time to negotiate." A week later, with a few thousand we'd saved up, we boarded a train to the provincial capital. This time, we didn't wander aimlessly like before. We went straight to the largest clothing wholesale market. We visited stall after stall, comparing prices and styles. Finally, we settled on 3 suppliers who offered fair prices and fresh, fashionable designs. We signed long-term contracts with them, agreeing to receive regular deliveries each month, and the cost was 30% lower than before. Once we shifted into wholesale, everything began to run even more smoothly. We expanded our store to twice its original size, knocking down the wall to the small room next door, and turning it into storage space. Every day, vendors from nearby towns came to buy goods, and the phone never stopped ringing with new orders. Aaron and I were constantly on our feet, busy from morning until night, but we enjoyed every moment of it. No matter how busy things got, Aaron never let me overwork myself. He always handled the heavy lifting, moving boxes, making deliveries, insisting that I stay out of it. Even on nights when he came home late, he always made sure to reheat dinner for me. And because he knew I was afraid of the dark, he'd call ahead whenever he was running late, telling me not to wait up. When he came home, he'd unlock the door quietly so he wouldn't wake me. That winter I found out I was pregnant. When I held the hospital report in my hands, I was trembling with excitement. I rushed home to tell Aaron, who was in the middle of unloading goods. He froze, set the box down with a thud, and then pulled me into his arms. His voice shook as he whispered, "Really, Lana? We're going to have a baby." I nodded, tears spilling down my cheeks. In my past life I'd been pregnant several times, but each one ended in tragedy. Miscarriages caused by exhaustion, stress, and heartbreak. But in this life I was finally carrying a child in peace, surrounded by love and security. Aaron became even more protective after that. He wouldn't let me lift a thing, taking on most of the work at the shop himself. Every evening after work, he brought home my favorite fruits. At night he'd tell me stories and rest his hand gently on my belly, talking softly to the baby inside. Mom moved in with us to help, cooking nutritious meals every day, and changing the menu constantly to keep things interesting. Our home was warm, lively, and full of laughter. When I was 7 months along, we used our savings to buy a new 2-bedroom home in the city. It was a brick house with a small courtyard, bright and airy, in a convenient area close to the market and the school. On moving day, Aaron took my hand, smiling as we stood inside our new home. "Lana," he said, "this is our place now. We'll never have to squeeze into that old house again." I looked around at the spacious, sunlit rooms, then at my gentle, devoted husband. Feeling our baby kick inside me, I was overwhelmed with happiness. This was the life I had dreamed of in my past life. Steady, peaceful, filled with love and shared with the right person. At the end of that year our son was born. Aaron named him Ethan Chun, saying it meant a life of peace and steadiness. "I just want him to live a safe and peaceful life," I whispered, looking down at the tiny wrinkled baby in my arms. His weak little cries tugged softly at my heart, melting me completely. Aaron stood beside the bed, gazing at me and our child with a tenderness that filled his eyes. Even the corners of his mouth couldn't hide the smile spreading across his face. Our business was thriving. Our family was happy. We had a home, a child, and the love of a husband and family who cherished me. Every morning, I woke up to see my husband and son sleeping peacefully beside me. As I thought about the steady stream of orders coming into the shop, I knew I had made the right choice in this life. All the pain and regret from my past life had dissolved into the warmth of this happiness. By the time our son Ethan turned 3, our wholesale business had grown stronger than ever. We had secured exclusive regional distribution rights for 2 well-known clothing brands, rented a large warehouse, and hired 3 employees to help manage and deliver orders. Aaron and I had transitioned from doing everything ourselves to becoming full-fledged business owners, handling factory partnerships and managing clients. One morning I went to the wholesale market as usual to check on our suppliers. As I walked through the familiar passage lined with goods, I noticed a tall man rummaging through a trash bin nearby. His jacket was faded and patched, his hair matted and full of dust. His pants were rolled up, revealing mud-splattered ankles. He looked utterly broken. First I didn't think much of it. There were always scavengers in the market, people collecting recyclables. But as I passed him, the man suddenly lifted his head. I froze. It was Ethan Miller. In just a few short years he had changed completely. In my last life I still remembered how he had looked after becoming rich. His face glowed with self-satisfaction, full of pride and arrogance. But now deep wrinkles etched the corners of his eyes. His gaze was dull and lifeless. His cheekbones stuck out sharply, and his thin frame made him look decades older than he really was. He clearly recognized me too. Panic flickered in his eyes, and he instinctively shrank back as if trying to avoid being seen. I stopped walking. Inside I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just a quiet sense of how much time and fate could change things. "Ethan Miller," I said softly. His body stiffened, but he didn't look up. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough like sand scraping against wood. "It's me. What are you doing here? I looked at the few empty plastic bottles clutched in his hand and asked calmly, What about you? Why are you here? He was silent for a long while before finally raising his head. His eyes flicked over me, my neat suit, the watch on my wrist, and then toward one of my employees pushing a cart loaded with goods not far away. His expression shifted from panic to embarrassment, and then to a faint bitter envy. I'm just picking up recyclables, he murmured so quietly I could barely hear. He instinctively tried to hide the plastic bottles behind him as if afraid I'd laugh at him. Just then, Aaron appeared from the other side of the market. Seeing me standing still with a stranger beside me, he walked over quickly and naturally reached for my hand. Lana, he said gently, is everything okay? Someone you know. His tone was warm, and when his gaze fell on Ethan, there wasn't a trace of arrogance, only polite curiosity. I nodded. Yeah, someone I used to know. Ethan looked at Aaron, and his expression twisted with something complicated. Shock, recognition, maybe even shame. He had clearly heard about our marriage all those years ago. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but the words caught in his throat. His face flushed red, then turned pale, and the awkwardness on it was almost painful to watch. You two are doing well now? He finally managed to ask after a long pause, his voice tinged with unmistakable bitterness. We're doing fine, I replied evenly. Life's been stable. Aaron seemed to sense that there had once been some kind of history between me and this man. His tone stayed calm as he said, If there's nothing else, we should get going. We still have work to do. I nodded and started to turn with him to leave. But Ethan suddenly blurted out, Wait. He hurried a few steps forward, blocking our way. The embarrassment on his face faded, replaced by a desperate, almost frantic intensity. His eyes locked onto mine, full of confusion and resentment. His lips trembled as if it took every ounce of courage just to speak. I stopped and looked at him, already guessing what he wanted to say. Around us, a few nearby vendors had begun to glance over curiously. Aaron gave my hand a light squeeze, signaling for me not to worry. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice suddenly rising several notches, cracking with emotion. Lana, he cried. I told you back then I was going to be rich. I was going to be a millionaire. So why? Why did it all turn out like this? Why didn't I make it? His voice shook with frustration and despair, drawing more onlookers. I stared at his green eyes, at the disbelief and stubbornness twisting his expression. And for a moment I almost laughed. In my previous life he had asked me a question just like this. Back then I'd been full of hatred, thinking he was heartless and ungrateful. But now I just found it pitiful, pathetic even. I looked him straight in the eyes, ready to give him the answer he had always wanted. Ethan's trembling voice drew a small crowd, vendors, buyers, and workers all gathering around, whispering to each other as they watched, but he didn't seem to care. He kept his gaze fixed on me, as if trying to dig out from my list some truth that could rewrite his fate. Aaron stepped protectively in front of me, his brows slightly furrowed, his tone polite but firm. If you have something to say it calmly. There's no need to get so worked up. I gently patted Aaron's hand, signaling that it was all right. Then I stepped forward, my expression calm and steady as I looked at the disheveled man before me. Ethan Miller, I said quietly, the reason you never became rich? It was never because of anyone else. It's because of you. He froze, clearly not expecting me to be so blunt. His lips quivered. Because of me? I was ambitious. I wanted to make money. If you hadn't broken off the engagement, if you'd stayed and helped me, how could I have ended up like this? I gave a short, cold laugh. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly through the air, reaching everyone standing nearby. You borrowed money from my family, saying it was for a small business, I said. But instead, you used it to buy your brother a new pair of sneakers. You said you'd build a new house for our wedding, but you blew through every cent. I didn't call off the engagement because I refused to help you. I did it because I finally saw you for who you were. You never wanted to work hard for anything. You just wanted to get rich overnight. I took a step closer, my tone still calm, but edged with truth that cut deeper than anger. You thought honest labor was beneath you. You thought small profits weren't worth your time. You couldn't handle losing money. And when you did, you blamed everyone but yourself. You got scammed because you were greedy, and that was your own doing. He stood there, pale and speechless. I held his gaze and went on. The 1990s were full of opportunities. I said. Aaron and I started with a street stall. We saved little by little, worked hard every single day, and built our business step by step. It takes getting up early, working late, and putting in real effort, I said calmly. It takes patience, honesty, and persistence, not daydreams, and certainly not cheating others out of their money. People around us began to nod in agreement. Someone whispered, "She's right. You can't become successful overnight. You have to work hard for it." "Yeah," another murmured. "He looks like the type who just talks big but can't do anything. No wonder he's doing so poorly." Ethan's face flushed red, then turned pale again. He opened his mouth wanting to argue, but not a single word came out. His lips trembled, and then suddenly tears streamed down his face. He squatted on the ground, buried his head in his arms, and began to sob uncontrollably. "But I really wanted to succeed," he cried hoarsely. "Everyone said I was smart. They said I was destined for great things. So why? Why am I the one who ended up like this?" I looked at his crumbling figure, and my voice softened slightly. "Being smart doesn't mean cutting corners or scheming," I said quietly. "Success comes from honesty, hard work, and endurance. Those are the foundations of any life worth living. You never lacked opportunity, Ethan. You lacked those three things." Aaron glanced at the sky and spoke gently. "Lana, let's go. The warehouse team is waiting for us to check inventory." I nodded, taking one last look at Ethan Miller, still crouched on the ground, his cries raw with regret and bitterness. But his misery no longer stirred anything in me. The sound faded behind me as we walked away, and I heard someone nearby sigh and mutter, "That guy was just too greedy for quick success." As we stepped out of the wholesale market, sunlight spilled across us, warm and golden. Aaron reached for my hand. "Do you feel better now?" he asked softly. I smiled, squeezing his hand tightly. "I let it go a long time ago. All I care about now is you, Ethan, and our business." Yes, everything from my past life, all the pain and resentment, had long since dissolved into the calm of my new life. Ethan Miller's downfall was the result of his own choices. It had nothing to do with me. And I, because of my own choices and perseverance, had married the right man, built a thriving business, and created a happy, loving family. When we got home, our little boy, Ethan Jr., came running toward me, his short legs bouncing as he shouted in his soft baby voice, "Mommy, you're home." I lifted him into my arms and kissed his chubby cheek. Aaron smiled from the side as he tidied up the table, and the smell of dinner drifted out from the kitchen. Looking at the warmth before me, our child's laughter, my husband's gentle eyes, the cozy home we had built together, my heart swelled with gratitude. I was grateful for this second chance at life. Grateful that I'd learned to let go of what wasn't worth holding on to. Grateful that I'd stopped wasting my youth on someone undeserving. And most of all, grateful that I had met Aaron Chan, a man who worked beside me, supported me, and filled my life with warmth. Dreams of becoming the richest man can't be achieved by greed or clever schemes. And real happiness doesn't come from marrying someone with potential. It comes from building a life of mutual respect, effort, and love. True happiness lives in the quiet days, in the shared struggles, and in the peace that follows every hard-earned success. In this life, I didn't waste myself saving the wrong man. I chose a good one, someone to walk beside me through every season. And this time, I finally became the person I was meant to be.